Hello, dear students. I welcome you all on behalf of Sri Jayendra Rank Zone classes. Dear student, in continuation of this chapter that is photosynthesis in higher plants, we are going to discuss today factors which affect the photosynthesis. It is almost the last topic which we are going to discuss here. We have already discussed about everything about the photosynthesis. Now, what are the factors that are going to affect this photosynthesis? So, if we talk about these factors, they affecting the photosynthesis are broadly classified into two categories. They are classified into two categories, that is internal factor and external factor. Okay, internal factors, they are obviously called as plant factors, and these plant factors, if we talk, then this plant factor which include the number, size, age, orientation of leaves, along with the number, size, age, orientation of mesophyll cells, then number of chloroplast, internal CO2 concentration, amount of chlorophyll. Those all are the factors which are the internal factors or plant factors, and it is known that the important statement for this that the plant factors or internal factors are dependent on the genetic predisposition, means the genetic makeup and the growth of the plant. This is the important question they usually ask in the form of blank, that the internal factors or plant factors dependent on the genetic predisposition, means genetic makeup and the growth of the plant. Okay, so external factor, if we talk, they are light, temperature, CO2 concentration, oxygen, water. These all are external factors. So these are the internal and external factors. So if we talk about first internal factors or plant factors, dear student, then the first factor is the number of leaves. So it is known that rate of photosynthesis is directly proportional to the number of leaves. It is directly proportional to the number of leaves. Second factor is the size of leaves. Here also, as we have studied in the first factor, that the number of leaves are more, the rate of photosynthesis will be more. So if the size of leaves is there, then rate of photosynthesis is directly proportional to the size of leaves. So if the size is more, the photosynthesis will be more. Third factor is the orientation of leaf. So orientation of leaf must be in such a way, must be in such a way that favor optimum light absorption. Optimum light absorption. So if light absorption is more, the orientation, if the leaves are oriented towards the light, that light absorption will be more. The fourth factor is mesophyll cell. So for optimum rate of photosynthesis, mesophyll should be well developed. So it is known that for optimum rate of photosynthesis, for optimum rate of photosynthesis, mesophills mesophyll should be well developed. If they are well developed, they have well developed chloroplast. If the mesophyll cells are more, then the rate of photosynthesis will be more. Then fifth factor, if you talk, that is the number of chloroplasts. So rate of photosynthesis it is known that is directly proportional to the number of chloroplasts. Okay. Then the sixth factor is amount of chlorophyll. So it is also known that rate of photosynthesis is directly proportional to the chlorophyll amount of plant or leaf. Then seventh factor is age of leaves. So it is known that until the leaf until the leaf attain maturity, the rate of photosynthesis increases. The rate of photosynthesis increases. But but along with senescence or aging, it decreases. And eighth factor is internal CO2 concentration. So up to a limit, it is known that up to a limit, the rate of photosynthesis, the rate of photosynthesis is directly proportional to internal CO2 concentration. Okay, so that is the what we can say plant factor or internal factor. So all these factors stimuli simultaneously affect the rate of photosynthesis. Either there is internal or external. Those several factors interact simultaneously affect photosynthesis or CO2 concentration. Usually, one factor is predominant or is the main that limit the rate. Okay, if we are going talking about this external factor specifically. Okay, so when several external factor affecting the rate of photosynthesis at a simultaneous time, then the one factor is predominant or one factor is going to be that is going to be the limiting factor. So hence at any point the rate of photosynthesis is determined by the factor available at suboptimal level. So whenever the photosynthesis is going on or any process is going on, the particularly its rate is determined by the factor which is available in lowest amount or minimal value or suboptimal level. So according to that, the Blackman's given a law of limiting factor, and this law of limiting factor given by Blackman when several factors affect the biochemical process. This Blackman's law of limiting factor come into effect. It says that if a process, that is photosynthesis or chemical process, is conditioned as to its rapidity by a number of several factors, means it is under a control of a number of several separate factors, the rate of photosynthesis is limited by the factor that is present in its relative minimal value. The limited by the factor then the present in the limited relative minimal value, then the rate of photosynthesis is limited by the factor which is in the relative minimal value or it is in the lowest. So if you talk about example, despite in the presence of a green leaf and optimal light and CO2 condition, the plant may not photosynthesize if the temperature is very low. So temperature is low and other all factors are good, then also photosynthesis will not occur, because if the given optimal temperature, the leaf will start photosynthesizing. If it is increased, if optimal is given, but if it is not optimum, the photosynthesis will not occur in spite of presence of other all factors in a proper condition. So the factors which we are going to discuss one by one here, that is the light, temperature, water, and sorry, first we are going to discuss the light. Okay. So light affects photosynthesis in three different ways. Light affect photosynthesis in three different ways. One is light quality, one is light intensity, and another is light duration of exposure of light. While discussing light as a factor that affect the photosynthesis, so in three different ways we are going to discuss. Now, first, if we talk about light intensity, then there is a linear relationship between the incident light and the CO2 fixation rate at a low light intensity. At low light intensity, it is good. Okay. But at high light intensity, gradually the rate does not show further increase as the other factor will become limiting, as you can see in this one. Okay. So we are discussing here first thing, that is a light intensity. Okay, so this is the light intensity, and this is the rate of photosynthesis. At a low light intensity, you can see there is a linear relationship between the rate of photosynthesis or CO2 friction and the light intensity. But after a certain period of time, at high light intensity, gradually the rate does not show further increase because the light is increasing, but other factors become limiting. So what is interesting to note that the light saturation occur at a 10% of the full sunlight. When 10% of the full sunlight is available, the light saturation will occur. Okay. Hence, except for plants in a shade or in a dense forest, the light is rarely limiting factor in nature. Light becomes rarely limiting factor, except this dense or shade forest. So increase in incident light beyond a point causes the breakdown of chlorophyll and decreases in photosynthesis. Okay, because of this, at high light increases, there is a no further increase in the rate of photosynthesis. Okay, so here, if we saw this graph, if we see this graph, which is shown here, it is labeled like this. It is like this. Here we are taking the light intensity, and here we are taking the rate of photosynthesis. Then it is known that this is labeled as A. Okay, this is labeled as B, and this is labeled as C. Okay, and here this point is labeled as E, and this point labeled as D. So we are showing here that increase in at low light intensity the rate of photosynthesis is high, but as the lighting intensity at high light intensity it become lower. So what this above points indicate? So in the above graph, the effect of light on the rate of photosynthesis is shown, and based on the graph fact we can see. So here in this we can note that at a point, if we show here, the light is low, other factors are proper. So here at point A, light is limiting factor. Now here if we talk about C and D point, at C point rate of photosynthesis does not show further increase. Does not show further increase as other factors become limiting. As other factors become limiting. And it is known that at D point the light saturation occurs. E point showing the maximum rate of photosynthesis that is shown here. Okay, so this is what about the light intensity. Now here this is the light intensity that we have discussed. Now apart from this, the second factor in a light, it is the light quality. Meaning that it is known that plant capture and utilize sunlight ranging from 400 to 700. So this 400 to 700 nanometer light is known as photosynthetically photosynthetically active radiation, and it consists Vibgyor component. Okay, so that is the thing. And in Vibgyor, It is known that blue and red light are most effective spectral component, are most effective spectral component, whereas the green light is least effective. Okay, so that is the light quality. And the third is the light duration. So it is known that if we talk about the light duration, it never affect rate of photosynthesis. Never affect rate of photosynthesis. Okay, and it is known that it does not affect rate of photosynthesis. It affect overall photosynthesis, or we can say overall yield or photosynthesis. Suppose we are giving a 7 hours duration of light, and per hour 1 kg food is getting synthesized by the plant. So in 7 hours, the plant is going to synthesize the 7 kg food. But if we increase the light duration to the 9 kg, that is going to synthesize the 9 kg food. But rate per hour going to be constant. So it does not affect the rate of photosynthesis. It is affecting going to be the affect the overall yield. And note important that plant photosynthesize optimally in intermittent light. Okay, so that is the important thing. So this is the light as an external factor. Now we are going to discuss the second factor, that is a carbon dioxide, and it is considered that carbon dioxide is a major limiting factor for the photosynthesis. Now we know that concentration of carbon dioxide is very low in atmosphere, that is it is 0.03 to 0.04%, that is near about to 300 to 400 parts per million, and accurately it is considered as 0.036%. So increase in concentration up to 0.05% can cause an increase in CO2 fission rate, but beyond this level can become a damaging over a longer period. So up to this, the plant can photosynthesize, but beyond that, it is will be damaging. So C3 and C4 plant respond differently to the CO2 concentration, and it is known that at low light intensity, neither the group respond to the high CO2 concentration. So at high light intensity, both C3 and C4 plants show increase in the rate of photosynthesis. And it is known that C4 plants show saturation at about 360 parts microliter per liter or 360 parts per million. And C3 plants respond to increased CO2 concentration, and saturation is seen beyond 450 parts per million or microliter per liter. So C3 plant photosynthesize maximally at a particularly beyond 450. Remember this word you should remember, beyond, more than 450 microliter per liter or parts per million, and here also 360 parts per million, but here about for the C4 plant. So now if we consider the present CO2 concentration is it is near about 360 parts per million or microliter per liter, means C4 plant can photosynthesize or can reach a saturation at this present CO2 concentration, but C4 plant cannot. So present CO2 concentration is limiting for the C3 plant. Okay. So the currently available carbon dioxide concentration in atmosphere is the limiting factor for the C3 plant, because C3 need 450, beyond 450, and in present there is near about 360. So C3 plant respond to a higher CO2 concentration by showing an increased rate of photosynthesis, leading to the higher productivity has been used for some greenhouse crop such as tomato and bell pepper. So in a greenhouse, tomato and bell pepper, by providing a higher CO2 concentration, they were grown, and it is seen that they grow optimally. They increase the rate of photosynthesis. So these greenhouse crops like tomato and bell pepper are used, and this effect is known as CO2 fertilization effect. So this crop are allowed to grow in carbon dioxide enrichment atmosphere that lead to the higher yield. And this phenomena is known as CO2 fertilization effect. Okay, CO2 fertilization effect. Now after this, in CO2, we have to understand one more thing, that is a CO2 compensation point. In CO2 compensation point, the question is first what is compensation points? Then it is the point, it is the point where rate of photosynthesis become rate of photosynthesis become equal to the rate of respiration. Rate of photosynthesis become equal to the rate of respiration. So when photosynthesis rate and the respiration rate are equal, then whatever the oxygen is evolved in the photosynthesis, that is going to be used by the respiration of the plant, and whatever the CO2 is released during the respiration, that is going to be used in the photosynthesis. So there is a no need of CO2 from the, so at this point no need of extra CO2 from atmosphere, and this occur at some particular CO2 concentration. So CO2 compensation point for C3 plant is 25 to 100 parts per million, and CO2 compensation point for C4 plant is 0 to 10 parts per million. Okay, so this is the thing where you will see this particular compensation point, and this is the CO2, which is major limiting factor, the second factor. Now, after this, the next factor which we are going to discuss, that is the temperature. Light dark reaction considered as enzymes are involved, it is considered as temperature control, because enzymes can be controlled by changing the, or we get getting variation in the temperature. So though the light reaction are temperature sensitive, because if light reaction will present, then the light reaction will occur. If it is absent, light reaction will not occur. So because of this, it is considered as a temperature sensitive, and light obviously regulating the temperature. So they affect a very much lesser extent. So C4 plant respond to high temperature because they show a high rate of photosynthesis, high temperature, and C3 plant have a much lower temperature optimum. Okay, so the temperature optimum for photosynthesis is of different plant also depend on the habitat they are adapted. And it is known that tropical plants which are near to the equator, they have a higher temperature optimum than the plants which are adapted to the temperate climates. Obviously, okay, so they respond to the higher temperature. So this is the temperature. So you should remember that what important, what you should remember. You should remember this one, that dark reaction. This question there, dark reaction is temperature control, and light reaction is temperature sensitive. This is the question they usually ask. Okay, and the, as we have discussed, the C4 plant, the C4 plant respond to the high temperature. So for C4, the temperature, it is considered that respond to the high temperature, that is 30 to 40 degrees Celsius, and high rate of photosynthesis show at this temperature vary for a C3 plant temperature is lower optimum, that is a 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Now the next factor which we are going to discuss, that is water. We know that water is important for the water of photosynthesis, and water is one of the reactant in the light reaction. The effect of water as a factor is more, though its effect on the plant rather than the directly on photosynthesis. Means compared to directly its effect on the photosynthesis, it are playing role during the photolysis of water only. Okay. So apart or and playing the role in oxygen evolution. So compared to its effect on photosynthesis, it has a more effect on the plant, overall plant. Okay. So water stress, because water is important, because if water availability, then the plant shape will be maintained, plant leaves shape will be maintained, their cells will be turgid and they will work properly. If there is a water stress or water availability is less, then it is going to close the stomata, and that reduces the CO2 availability within the plant. If the CO2 availability within the plant will be less, the photosynthesis will be less. When there is a water stress, it will may happen that leaves wilt or they show curling, due to which the curling of the leaf, the surface area of the leaf will be less, so the light availability will be less, light absorption will be less, and the metabolic activity are also going to be affected. Okay, so this is the thing where particularly both wilting or closing of stomata will occur in a water stress. The photosynthesis will decrease. Okay, so this is the way how the water affects. Now, after this, we have to remember some inhibitors. Okay, at last, we are going to talk about some inhibitors. And it is known that these inhibitors are used as weedicides or herbicides to remove the weeds. Okay, and in that, the first group is DCMU, that is dichlorophenyl dimethylurea, or we can say diuron. Then CMU or monouron, that is a CMU, is going to be chlorophenyl dimethylurea, and PAN, that is peroxyacetyl nitrate. These all are going to inhibit electron flow from P680 to plastophenol. Okay, and thus block and thus block PS2. Whereas other inhibitors are the diquat, paraquat, violation dyes. These all are going to inhibit cyclic photophosphorylation. Cyclic photophosphorylation by blocking electron flow between V700 and FD, that is ferredoxin. Okay, so means they are going to inhibit is mainly cyclic photophosphorylation. Okay, so this is the way how the particularly the inhibitors work. So that is all about the factors. Now photosynthesis, as we know, it is a process manufactures organic compound. It is obviously an anabolic process. First CO2 fixator in C4 plant is obviously that is going to be PEP and forming oxaloacetic acid. Who proved that oxygen involved in photosynthesis come from water? That is obviously Cornelius von Neil, who particularly shown this by using purple and green sulfur bacteria. The first product of photosynthesis is sugar, and it is converted into starch by all plants. The site of light reaction of photosynthesis, obviously it is a both 1 and 2, that is a grana thylakoid and stroma thylakoid membrane. The dark reaction in photosynthesis is called so because it cannot occur during the day, it is light independent. During photochemical reaction of photosynthesis means light reaction, blank is evolved, oxygen is going to be evolved along with the active and replaced. So this is all about the factor, and that is all about the photosynthesis. I hope, dear students, you have understood. Thank you.